everybody, and welcome to another Pigskin in the Mosh Pit podcast. I'm your host, Big Bri. Let's bring in the panel. First off, from Cleveland.com, Mob Rules, Made in America's drummer, Mr. Dan Gillis.
Howdy,
What's up,
howdy.
Dan?
Good seeing you.
What's up, man? Welcome aboard again for another week. Also, from the Manimals, frontman, founder, Larry Wolf.
Bigot cats.
What's
Good
up?
to see you guys.
What's
Hell
up, man?
yeah. No Jeff tonight. We gave Jeff the night off. Everyone gets a vacation day. So he took his tonight, and he'll be on next week, he said. So that's good news. But today we got lots to talk about, you guys. They just made all their final cuts today, and they just announced that a few hours ago, actually. So 4 o'clock that happened. And it's not really the final 53, I guess you would say, because this is like the first 53, I think is really what you would call it, right? Would you say that, Dan?
The 53-man roster will be different on Friday than it is today. I guarantee that.
Right, exactly. And it happens pretty quickly, too. So there's a lot of guys that are like right on that cusp, and they got to build a practice squad. So that all comes apart from this process, I guess you would say, where you start adding people, and then some make it to the practice squad, and some just don't make it at all, and they wind up on other teams. It's an interesting process. I don't think there's a lot of surprises this year. Not big ones, nothing major. It's that kind of team, though, right now, where it's kind of just solid in so many places, and it has depth in so many places that there's really not going to be a lot of surprise cuts on this squad. You kind of know who's going to be on this team. Would you say? I mean, one of the most solid Browns teams in a long time on paper, without a doubt. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely. I have the list of cuts in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'll read them off real quick. Siaki Ika, Sam Kamara, Zaire Mitchell-Payton, Winston Reed, Lorenzo Thompson, Trayton Welch, Michael Woods II, Christopher Edmonds, Jalen Darden, Amarian Brown, Joan Briggs, Tony Brown II, Deontay Foreman, Justin Hardy Jr., Jermaine Afridi, and James Prochet. And then Michael Dunn was put on IR, or the reserve non-football list, as was Nyheim Hines. Chubb's on the PUP list, and Luke Whippler is on the IR, and Michael Hall Jr. is on the commissioner's list, and Brady Breeze was away from IR. So those are your cuts. The biggest surprise to me was probably Deontay Foreman, only because they brought him in as kind of like Nick Chubb's placeholder while he recovered. And I think his neck injury, and then when he came back, his injury last week, I think kind of made him expendable.
Let me ask you guys, okay, so the Browns love to bring back guys, and I don't really know how this is on a national level as much, but I know the Browns do love to bring back guys, and I know a big part of that's probably because once you learn a system or so what, we got Jeff's replacement.
That's my cat Bonzo.
Yeah, what's up, Bonzo? But they do like to bring guys back and stuff, and they, like a guy like Kareem Hunt, I know, but you could just see them pulling some stuff like that. Well, the guy, he had that role, and that was the whole Deontay Foreman's role, was supposedly to take the place of Hunt. Now what do? I mean, do you just go in there with 2 running backs and call it a day?
I don't think so. There's a reason why they kept 4 quarterbacks, and Andrew Berry's working on something, trading something for picks. And I don't know if he'll get a running back in that trade, but I do see them scoping the wire for some available bodies.
Yeah.
They're not going to roll the season with just Pierre Woods or Pierre Strong and I'm drawing a blank. That's it, Jerome Ford. They're going to have at least one more guy that's coming in.
Good. Really, if you can't remember their name, then you got to add somebody to the.
Yeah.
That's how that works. When you don't remember their name at all, you're like, all right, we need somebody in there. I mean, that's bad. No, it is kind of like that.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It's
you went from having like the most incredible running back room to Pierre Strong, who's listen, and both those guys are talented running backs. I'm not saying they suck. That's not what we're saying. But Strong, I mean, he's I don't know. I just feel like we're always like that one slight injury away from just derailment. And I get it. They're going to spread this thing out. They're going to pass a lot more. They're not going to rely much on the run. I don't know where Nick Chubb even fits in when he comes back, according to what I hear about this offense. So I don't know.
It's going to be different. I know Stefanski's still calling the plays, but the plays he's going to be calling aren't going to be the same ones that we've seen the last few years.
No, much different it seems.
Dorsey's more of a spread guy, an RPO, and that kind of plays into the strength of Watson and even the guys that are still here. DTR, Winston, even.
Yeah.
So that they're going to be. I could see them doing a 60-40 pass ratio.
Yeah.
Or maybe even 65-35.
Yeah, which is a lot. We were running at least half the time, even more sometimes.
Yeah. Some Browns fans aren't going to want to hear that because ground and pound and cold weather, and that's what we do, Browns football. But that hasn't been the case in years.
No,
Today's NFL, a good running game is a luxury. A Nick Chubb is a luxury.
And like we were talking about in the last show too, if they get that stadium belt, which God help us all that they don't. But if they get that stadium belt, then it doesn't matter what kind of team you field. The greatest what was the greatest game on turf or whatever it was.
Greatest show on turf, yeah.
Greatest show on turf. I couldn't think,
Rams.
yeah. But I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? So, I just don't see the scenario play out yet where that doesn't happen. So, yeah, man, build that team, let's get a pass attack.
Well,
whatever,
Dan,
man.
I was looking at a statistic, and it was showing, I think it was 2023, Christian McCaffrey, I believe, was maybe the only running back in the NFL with over 1,200 yards rushing.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And 20 years ago, there were like 8. Now you flip it. 20 years ago, there were, I forget what the receiving threshold was.
Correct, yeah.
But the one now is like, it's a complete inversion of the game. The
right.
running game's gone. So, Dan, to your point about the old school, that 2 yards in a cloud, that stuff's all gone. Now, there could be a day where it reverts back to that, because that's kind of the thing. It evolves to something. Everybody will be great at passing, and then they'll shift, and somebody will come out 5 years from now with this tremendous running attack and kill teams, and they'll be like, oh, we got to do that. There'll be a shift. But it seems like they've opened up the Pandora's box of passing. It's, as I said last week, this is AFL arena football, quasi-arena football on steroids with biggest, best athletes, because they want scoring and they want fantasy football points.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this reminds me of what my dad always said was the AFL NFL thing. He's like, when the AFL came into the picture, and the NFL came, all that came in the picture, it was a passing attack and it was an offensive just juggernaut, and it was just scoring, and he's like, it was way more fun. Yeah, way more fun to watch than the other game.
Big Bri, to that point, it's interesting because sometimes I talk, I like to go with the old numbers a lot of the time.
Right. Bart
Starr, who's, great, legendary Packer quarterback, right? Great, Hall of Famer and everything.
Absolutely.
Lombardi's guy. You know how many, and he had 2 very good games in Super Bowls 1 and 2. All right.
Right.
Above his average. You know what his career average per game passing yards is?
What is it?
116.
What? Really?
I was gonna say 150.
Okay.
Wow.
That was around the average. Now you have said Super Bowl 3 with Namath.
Yeah.
His career average, even with 3 miserable seasons at the end of his career where he should not have played, was 198. And he was number 1 all time at the time he retired. I think he's number 27 still. All those guys of that era, the NFL guys, they were paltry. I mean, they had really mediocre. They had exceptional games here and there that most people saw in the playoffs, and you'd see it on the NFL Game of the Week with Pat Summerall and I forget the other guy's name.
Begins with the B. Berkshire or
Tom Brookshire. Yes.
Hell yeah. Only on Pigskin.
You only got good man. So hey, that's what teams do. They compliment one another. They figure it out. They complete each other's questions or answers. Whatever.
That is correct.
Or thoughts. But we all got to see their best performances on TV because you didn't typically see all the games then. So you just think of, oh my God, Darryl LaMonica, the Mad Bomber. He's another guy. He probably had 140 career average, but he had a handful of games that he threw it. Namath was the exception to that. Lenny Dawson had a very good, but to your point, that was that NFL thing. All those quarterbacks of that era that were in the NFL, they were really game managers. Don't make a mistake. Hand the ball off. They all threw a lot of picks. They just all did.
Yeah, it seemed like passing back then was just to keep the defense from bunching up in that box so much, so that you can ram the ball down their throat some more. Well, really, I mean, it was like pass set up the run, where now the run sets up the pass, and that's not even true anymore. It's just the pass sets up the pass.
The pass sets, yeah, it really does.
Well, when you brought up Len Dawson, and when he played for the Browns, he was horrible. And then they let him go, and he went to the AFL, and he becomes the Hall of Famer, Super Bowl MVP, Len Dawson.
There's a bunch of guys. I mean, LaMonica, I mentioned, he was terrible for 6 years with the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
And then he came to Oakland behind arguably the greatest offensive line ever assembled with Jim Otto, Gene Upshaw, Art Shell, Bob Brown, 4 Hall of Famers out of 5. And then later years, you get Stabler, gets Dave Casper. You got an offensive line with 4. They had a combination of no less than 4 Hall of Fame players on their offensive line for about a 9-year spread. I mean, that's
incredible.
That's incredible. So no wonder they look. I mean, Dan Fouts stunk the first 6 years of his career. Before the 78 rule changes, he was mediocre.
Right.
And then but that was their role. I mean, there were guys like old school, like what's his name from the Browns,
Otto Graham.
Otto Graham. I mean, he did push the ball, and Unitas pushed the ball.
Yeah.
They were different.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Paul Brown was different too. So there you go. Why Otto Graham there was a marriage there that existed.
They were the anomalies. They were exceptions.
Exactly.
Otto Graham was passing when nobody else was except for maybe
Sammy Baugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit Browns. I want to talk. I do want to talk about the quarterback situation, because the quarterback situation right now for the Browns is become, again, interesting, as it always is every single year, no matter what, whether you have good quarterbacks or not. The situation has to have a twist or two. So here we go. Of course, you got Watson as the starting quarterback. That will not change, at least for 3 more years, most likely. And it seemed up until really, from what I always heard today, really, Jameis Winston would be the backup quarterback. And they also had Huntley, Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley was the other quarterback, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who basically took the majority of the snaps during the preseason, and actually looked good again this preseason versus last preseason where he looked good, and actually had some flashes in the regular season where he looked decent. It's hard to sell me on this guy, and I don't know why. It's nothing like it's like I can't give you exact concrete reasons or why. They call it the eye test sometimes and stuff like that. And I don't know. You watch football your whole life, and you just see players, and you just look at that dude, and you're just like, yeah, I don't know. And I get that feeling with him. So I'm not sure I'm sold on him. And I like Winston as a backup, but today I was hearing rumors about a possible trade with Jameis Winston and being traded. I mean, at first it was DTR, I heard was the possible trade bait. Now I'm hearing Winston. Do you hear something like that, Dan? Have you heard anything like that?
Oh, I've heard that all 3 of the backups, because Watson's not getting traded. I'm sure expected the Browns fans are wishing for that. It ain't going to happen, so shut up. Of the 3 backups, all 3 have been brought up in trade talks: Huntley, Winston, and DTR. And I think it really depends on what kind of return they're going to get before they pull the trigger on one. I personally, and I never thought I'd say this, because I was never a Jameis Winston fan in college when he played for Tampa. I never liked him.
I don't either.
I hope that they keep him, because what he brings to the table with the leadership, and his teammates love him. He rallies them up. He plays he has a great arm. He's thrown for 5,000 yards. If God forbid, if Watson gets injured again, which is a distinct possibility, you want your Joe Flacco to step in, and Winston is your Joe Flacco. DTR, to me, he's still raw. He's still unproven. He's still skinny. He played good in the preseason, but let's not forget who he's playing against. He's playing against guys who are going to be on practice squads. They're going to be in the UFL. They're going to be selling insurance. They're going to be coaching high school gym. So let's think, preseason is preseason for a reason. Everybody, let's take it with a grain of salt.
It's true.
So I looked. DTR looked pretty. He threw some good balls. His guys made some good catches for him. But I'm with you. I'm not 100% sold on him as being a guy that, maybe a long-term backup, sure. But I mean, in the short things that we saw of him last year, he didn't really impress me. His first start against Baltimore was abysmal. He beat Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh sucked in that game. So I mean,
I just don't think he looks durable to me. I just fear always when he's out there. To me, he looks like he's
like a twig.
Like what's funny about and then you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, right? So here's what's funny about just watching football your whole life and what I mean by the eye test. The twig part really doesn't even matter, because if you look at Lamar Jackson, you're looking at a guy that you immediately see how he moves on the field, and you realize that there's a really good chance that no one will ever really get a clean shot on this dude. He's just that gifted. And I think like there's a lot of people who don't watch enough football that don't understand that about a guy like Lamar Jackson, that's what makes that dude so incredibly good, is that he's such a freak of nature in the way he's able to make guys miss, who freaks of nature make them miss, make freaks of nature miss. He's able to do that on a regular basis. And there's a good chance he'll never take a really good square shot his whole career. That's it, unless he stays in a little too long. And that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
You stay, that 1 year too long, and then you don't have that move. They're just a little faster now. And but anyways, so that's what I mean about that. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. He just doesn't have. It's his heart too. It's his whole everything about Thompson. It's just not selling. I'm not sold, man.
I'm not sold either.
Dan, when you mentioned UFL, it's interesting the drop off in talent as you guys are talking. Like we just mentioned with him, being a freak among freaks. But with the UFLs, the Jets had the UFL MVP of last season in their camp, and he didn't make the 53-man roster at quarterback.
Yeah,
I forget his name, but he didn't make it.
Was that Tanucci?
It might be. I just saw that. I was keeping a casual eye because they had brought him into camp, a UFL MVP from there, and he didn't make the roster. So that you can tell the drop. So to your point about the guy going over in there, there's such a drop off in talent.
Oh yeah.
Now, do you even really follow the Jets much as on a local, like on a updated basis right now? Are you still a Jets fan? Would you say? I mean,
I keep an eye on it, Big Bri. I mean,
they have a great. Dude, they have one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. I still love Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. The guy was just incredible. I mean, he's like, I really wanted him to do well with New York, actually, because I thought that would be a cool story, because I do like Aaron Rodgers.
It's good it would be good for the league, and clearly they wanted it. And I'd like to see him too play for more than 4 plays. See what he can do.
I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe that either.
I can't believe this.
Yeah,
it's unreal.
But I want to see him. He has tremendous chemistry with Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall is an absolute great running back. I mean, he just is. And you got 2 guys there that 2 years or 3 years back, they were 1 and 2 for. Garrett Wilson ended up getting Offensive Rookie of the Year, but Breece Hall was actually running away with it till he got hurt. Yep. He had a great comeback season last year. So, and that was the year they had offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year, which is tough to do with Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. So I keep a casual eye, and I noticed as we're talking about quarterbacks, they only kept 2 on the roster, and I noticed the Chargers did as well. So I keep a casual eye across what things moving and who might be moving which team. And it is so thin and frankly, the 2 guys on the Chargers, I couldn't even tell you the names because when I read them, I don't recognize them.
Easton Stick is probably one of them.
I think so, yes. And then Luis, somebody that I did not know at all. But keeping 4 is a lot, but keeping 2, 3 is probably a nice number.
Yeah,
two's rough. You are.
Yeah,
They got Tyrod Taylor, and then they had another guy from college. They said was a tremendous college, but he had a very severe leg break, and they said he is not. They're putting him on the unable to perform, or whatever.
Was that Max Duggan?
I might be. They're saying now they think it's not a bone break. It must be something else that's damage to the structure of his leg, because a break of a bone shouldn't be. I think it's been 9 months or whatever that he's been out. But two people. I do keep a casual eye, Brian. Again, I'm fascinated when a team only keeps two of arguably the most important position on the field.
I don't even think it's arguably. I mean, the quarterback definitely is the most important position in football, especially today. I mean, I think especially after what we just talked about, it's obvious without a quarterback, that passing game sucks.
Yeah,
you could end up with Zach Wilson for a year.
Yeah,
like Denver might.
Yeah, man.
Did he make Denver?
I believe I think he had a great preseason, and then he got edged out for the final round. He's second on the depth.
Okay,
he got edged out for starter.
I think he made it.
All right, so we got, like we said before, our running backs are Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong. Really not a lot to talk about there, except I think that they're thin there. I think that they're going to have to do something there. I think that as much as Nick Chubb's probably my favorite Brown of all time at this point in the game.
Really?
I think
probably
90% of
Yeah, probably at this point in the game, probably my favorite Brown of all time. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to remember another Brown who gave more heart and soul than that guy gave for the years he's here, except for Joe Thomas. I mean, if I had to pick another one, Joe. I mean, all the old guys I loved, and for a long time they would have easily, I could have easily picked them out. But I just think that the last 20 years it's made a couple great ones. In Joe Thomas is one for sure.
Josh Cribbs,
man, but Nick Chubb has just been such a different type of guy that Cleveland really hasn't had since like Jim Brown. And it's like I know when I say that, the people like my dad and some other people I know are like, shut up, you do not ever mention his name with other running backs. You never say Jim Brown. That's impossible. It's not close. It can't happen. But if
probably with your dad on that one, I think that's a big
Jim Brown and there's everybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
if you saw Jim Brown, see, that's what I'm saying. If you saw Jim Brown, from what I understand, if you saw Jim Brown, it's a done deal. There's no arguing. Forget about it. But all I'm saying is that in my lifetime, I haven't seen something like him in a long time, and it's not just on the field. It's just everything about Nick Chubb. He's just unique. His whole demeanor is unique. He's everything I love about football. He's like the way he gets up and hands the ball to the referee. There's no celebration. He doesn't give a shit about it. He doesn't. Nothing about him is. It's just he's just like the perfect player to me. And it's like, to me, in this day and age, especially, that's about as rare a thing in football to find players that are just that way. And so he's probably my favorite friggin' player at this point. I mean, seriously, I'd love to see him come back.
Uh-oh.
Yikes.
This Wolf show. Okay, there it is.
That's what manual focus. That's what happens. That's what happens when I go on rants. I forget about the timer on my phone, on my camera. That thing, I got to reset that thing. You guys were both on my show. Remember when I had to reset the cameras?
Oh yeah, I remember.
I'm using those cameras. So I got to remember. That's why when you guys get on an up close, sometimes I'll shoot you guys on a close up. I switch my camera real quick. See?
Okay.
Nice.
That's how we do it.
Trade secrets, everybody.
Yeah, man.
All right, so I can see more now when there's just three of us. Dan, I can see you've got your history of NFL pennants back, or your pennant with all the championships and all that stuff, and you've got a tremendous CD collection back there.
Thank you very much.
Trying to figure out. And Big Bri, I must say, you've got tremendous taste in posters back there. I see.
You can never go wrong with kids.
I see a Kiss rocking all over, a Browns, and I see those guys over there.
Nice.
Yeah, I got those. Some cool dude gave me those. I don't know, some cool dude. Yeah, man. Again, coolest show in a very long time. Okay,
I do,
so
I do have a signed Manimals CD in that collection, courtesy of somebody on the screen. So thank you.
Oh my good.
It's in there. You're looking at it, you just don't know.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
in there.
you. All right.
That's so cool. All right, let's talk some wide receivers.
They kept 6.
And that's a good number, right? 6, 7. That's usually about what most teams keep, right?
Yep. And I don't see any real surprises here.
Right.
David Bell, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Jamari Thrash, Cedric Tillman. Thrash is a rookie. He stood out in the preseason. I think he won their Maurice Bassett Award for the best player in the preseason. I saw that today.
And he'll play special teams anyway, so that's what that'll be his role anyways. Yeah, that's a good. It's it's again, in a long time, at least on paper, this is probably the strongest receiving core in a long time that I can remember. I mean, I again on paper, this team. Again, you got to always be careful when you talk about Cleveland Browns. I understand that, but on paper, again, this team it's deep, it's strong. They have a clear 1 and 2 right now. I can't remember whenever I ever said that before. I mean, again, Jeudy, again, in Cleveland, only Cleveland do you ever go, well, this guy isn't proven yet. And every other team, when you get a guy like Jerry Jeudy, they're like, well, we got our number 2. But in Cleveland, it's always, well, you got to prove it here. Here, you got to prove every single thing because we assume everyone's a bust until you play. And rightfully so.
Yep.
Anyway.
Exactly.
I do like our receiving core. If they can stay healthy as always, as like everything else. Not a bad receiving core. I love Amari Cooper. I really like the guy a lot. Again, same reasons I said about Chubb. I love a guy who gets up and hands the ball to the referee. He doesn't showboat. He doesn't do those kinds of things. I just like that. I like that all you care about is shoving the ball down their throat and running right down the field. And just that's all that matters. And that's what I love. I just think that's the coolest to me. That's what pumps me up. That's what gets me all. I get fired up when I see that stuff, man. I do. When I see guys celebrate, especially when they're losing the game and they score and they celebrate on a score that doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
I really hate all celebrating, but when I see that kind of stuff, I just it makes me sick. It like ruins the even if it's my guy, I'm like, why'd you do it? Well, come on, man.
Sit down and shut up. Go to the next play.
Yeah, dude, hand the ball off. Yeah. Go smash their face in on the play. I prefer that. That's just my preference. That's all there is to it.
You know what happens is I think that, years ago, 40 years ago, when Don Shula was on the rules committee, and he hated Mark Gastineau and he hated the Redskins receiving core, the Fun Bunch.
Yeah.
The high fives.
They had they go in a circle and they do the Fun Bunch celebration. And he hated Gastineau because Gastineau was wrecking him all the time.
Oh, and he always does dance.
Yeah. And I mean, at that time, there weren't a lot of celebrate. There was Billy White Shoes Johnson who did his things on kick returns and punt returns.
Cabbage Patch.
Yeah, you had a handful of guys that did it. And at that time, okay, that generated some hate from some people, but it also brought in a lot of casual people who were like, oh, that's that guy again. He does all that funny that stuff. Or like years later with the Icky Shuffle and that stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because Shula did everything to outlaw it. Of course, 35 years later, what happens? Everybody now and their brother is celebrating. So it makes guys like Chubb who just hand the ball, go back, do their business, and act like professionals. They're now the special ones who stand out.
That's a good point, Larry. I know.
Who cares?
What was norm is now the exception.
Yeah,
that's really how it's become. And but I don't know if that's old school thinking though. That the funny thing is I think. Because I think that way. Well, of course, everyone thinks that way. But you know what? Obviously, I'm wrong because there's a whole reason why the NFL did what you just said. Like first it was you got the guys doing the flips in the end zone. You got Gastineau dancing after a sack, and you had all that stuff going on. And it was so cool because it was so special to that person. Like Gastineau sacked and danced.
Yeah, you know what?
Icky Woods
all you want.
did that.
Stop it.
So, yeah. Right. And it was something, and at the time too, I do believe that they all knew when it was right and when it was wrong. Ickey Woods wouldn't, when you're losing 27-7 and you score a touchdown, you're not doing the Ickey shuffle.
You don't do the shuffle.
No.
All right, I like that's the stuff that I just go crazy when I see stuff like that. I'm like shut up, dude. Go back to the sideline with your head down because you're still getting creamed. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, one of the worst examples I think of that is, well, first of all, Michael Strahan, when he got his sack, when he broke Gastineau's sack record, it's completely, utterly
fell down.
Yeah, Brett Favre, I remember Toysher and the rest of that line were so pissed at him, and they came out. They were pissed because they held Strahan out. Strahan, he gets the gift. What do you calls it? He gets the gift and breaks it by a half a sack. He's over on the sidelines blubbering like a big baby while his team is still playing the game. And it was a meaningful game at the end of the season. They're trying to play, and he's over there blubbering and acting a fool when everybody just saw he got a gift from his pal. It's one of the worst cases of that. Like,
it's fake. It's like wrestling. It starts to become like wrestling, and some of that. Oh, yeah, man, that drives me crazy, dude.
Even people who hate that, they're like, yeah, there's an asterisk on that. That's a bullshit. That was not his. He didn't break shit. Favre gave his buddy something, and then he didn't care about his team. Yeah. Clearly, the record was more important. The bogus record was more important to him than his team and winning the game. And I think that's a throwback to the individual. It's not right when the individual becomes more important than the collective of the team's success.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. And there's no doubt about it when individuals buy into the team's success and the team does succeed, individuals succeed. And I think I do believe that is the equation that all coaches always try to sell to their players, that individualism seldom works, because when the team fails, their numbers are going to reflect on that no matter what. You can't run for yards when your offensive line sucks. That's a fact in the NFL. The best running backs, all that ever happens to them is they have short careers. That's what happens in the NFL. I don't care how good you are. That's the funny thing about people who don't watch and don't understand everything about what they see in the NFL is how just absolutely grueling and the physical breakdown that you have if your team sucks. And especially quarterbacks, right? I mean, I don't think the rules have definitely changed over these last 10 years, but before that, if you were a quarterback who had a terrible line in the NFL, you were in trouble. Your career was not going to last very long. As a result,
I'll bring up somebody on our team right now that everybody loves, Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
Myles Garrett was one of the biggest individuals the Browns had for years. All he cared about was sacks. All he cared about was his dancing and whatever. And as soon as he got his sack, he was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
And they finally got him to buy into a defense. And what happened? The defense was awesome. His numbers were good. He didn't care about trying to get 30 sacks in a year. He made his guys around him better, and they got to the playoffs. And it took someone like maybe Jim Schwartz to finally kind of get in his head and say, hey, look, dude, NFL stands for not for long.
Yeah.
You got a chance to, make your team better, not just by sacking the quarterback, by taking down double teams, showing these guys the ropes, and look what happened. Look what transformed. And now Myles Garrett was defensive player of the year last year, deservedly so.
And
he did Pittsburgh, deservedly so.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
I don't agree with him getting it, but I know your point is valid.
I know. There's definitely going to be the argument
at all.
Always. Right.
And he's got to get to 20 before he gets to 30, Dan. He's not even sniffing 30. He hadn't sniffed 20.
Well, I'm just saying that's his thing. He wants 30 sacks,
Get 20.
Get 20.
Start with 20, because all the great DEs who get doubled and tripled and all that other bullshit, they get 20. Some of the really great ones do it more than once. Not many.
Yeah.
But they figure it out. Unless they go with the old Howie Long thing. I could be 20 sacks a year if I wanted to, but you never fucking did you? He did. He had a commercial with Gillette or whatever in the early 80s. He said, I could have 20 sacks a year if I wanted to, but he never did. Greg Townsend had more sacks most years than he did.
I remember Greg Townsend.
Yeah. Good player. Doesn't get any credit. The other guy's in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
life isn't fair all the time with players. But yeah,
No,
Garrett,
it's not.
your
No,
point
it's
was
not.
really good because you're right. Garrett became a much better player when he became part of the team scheme. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything in that whole scheme and everything about that whole entire situation improved when that all happened. And
sure.
for whatever reason, right now the Browns have bought into that team thing. But success does help keep that. It's like success is the glue that keeps it together. Once the success breaks down, the glue breaks down, and you'll start seeing people start pointing fingers, and then you have problems. And right now we're in a good place. So far, so good.
And as a footnote, don't get me wrong, he's a great player. I take him on my team in 2 seconds.
I know what you mean.
Would.
But I know what you mean.
I don't think
it was a weird season for him to win.
I would take of any defensive player, but he's a great player.
It was a weird season for him to win. Let's just say that. I think there were other seasons where I think he might have been more deserving and didn't get it than last season where he got it. And I think that just proves that all these awards are in a lot of ways just kind of bogus in their own right. I mean, I think that they kick in bonuses in their contracts and their stuff like that. And they, there's other reasons why these guys want these awards and stuff. But I just think that they're like popularity contests also. What else happened this year with you, and how does your team, and what happened there, and what? Okay, well, you win this year. Like it's not always done just by the numbers. And if it was, I think that Watt would have won.
But critics,
and I think that's the way it is.
I think a lot of times it's not unlike music, where the writers and the critics, mostly the critics of music, they want to be the kingmakers. They want to tell people what's good, what isn't.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of sports writers, and Dan, I know you're a sports writer, so you could speak to this better than I could. You can elevate your popularity if you tell people what they want to hear, right?
Yep.
That's
100%.
Doesn't the news? I mean, so I think they start to think, some of them elevate themselves, they think, to kingmaker, and they decide certain players are that player, and they are reticent to correct themselves mid-season if that player, if they don't want to say, hey, I got that wrong. My preseason pick for this guy of the year MVP isn't having the best season.
You're right.
It should be that guy. Or they've been critical of somebody. They don't want to say they've been wrong on anything.
Right.
I could definitely think of one Cleveland sports writer in particular. I'm not going to say his name. Excuse me. He definitely is one of those guys, those kingmakers, those I'm going to be negative on this person, and I'm going to break you, and he got and there's a reason why he doesn't break any news anymore. And so I hopefully, and I can go on a tangent about the state of today's media, and I'm not going to go there, but
we'll have a show about it one day.
I want you to.
Yeah. Everybody, it's all about clicks. It's all about the clickbait headline, So
you see it. I mean, you see how they're worded and how they're structured, and
they want to be first. They want to get the first thing out on Twitter or the first thing out on whatever X, and they want to be the first ones. And it could be totally wrong, which 80% of the time it is, but they're going to be the first ones with that rumor, and everyone's going to start talking and retweeting them and going on and on. Oh my God, so and so's going to get traded. So and so, he's horrible. This guy's bad. Blah 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 blah. And then 24 hours later, it doesn't happen. Out of the next one. The cycle continues over and over and over again. And they don't hold these people accountable to their erroneous reporting. Back in my day, I'm going to go there. Back in my day, if I did something like that in the newspaper, my ass would have gotten either fired or I would have gotten suspended in a severe ass reaming from my boss, about the dangers of fake news and about, not having your shit covered, not having your sources, all that kind of shit.
Yeah, ethics, integrity, all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, the things you're supposed to have as a journalist,
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't have that in today's era.
Well, they frown on it now. Now they frown on integrity and ethics. Now the whole idea, like you said, is to be deceiving. Deceit is everything right now. How to be an illusionist. How to make this become this and get people to do this, and how do we do that? How do we force that? It doesn't matter if the story's true. Once they've clicked, we got them, because there's where the ad is, and now we got them where we want them. And I mean, it literally is like that now. It's like a machine. It has nothing to do with the material in there anymore. It's about how do we structure the material to how do we put lipstick on the pig, or how do we, like that whole entire thought process. It's become that now, and we're so guilty of being victims, not victims. That's the wrong word. I take that back. We're being suckers, is what we're being. We're being suckers.
Well,
and
you have to question it, and that's unfortunate because you shouldn't have to.
Right.
Because you guys say, I think Big Bri, you used the term journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
As Jim was talking. I mean, you expect it to be honest and fair, and you don't expect it to be borderline or even overt now propaganda.
Right. And that's what it's become.
It is. It's
what it's become.
People's biases go into their reporting, and then you see it a lot on the news level.
Yeah.
But you're seeing it a lot on the sports level too. Just turn on ESPN.
Oh yeah.
And in about 10 minutes, you're going to be thoroughly disgusted by what you see, and be like, that guy's biased, that woman's biased,
yes.
They hate blah 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 blah. And I know it's a tired cliche, but national media hates Cleveland sports.
They do love to talk about it in a certain way. They do love to. And there's reasons for it. I mean, it's funny because
it's easy to heap on the bad.
Well, there are reasons for it. I mean, like there's our baseball team is kind of the exception to this rule. The Guardians nationally or the Indians don't usually get beat up much. We usually bring on our own misery. They usually do to themselves what they have coming. Like this year, no one was saying anything bad about them when they were killing it. But now that they're the third worst team in the American League since the All-Star break, people have a reason to say stuff about them. And you know what? I agree with them right now.
I totally agree with them.
Yeah, they fucking suck right now. So
they're garbage.
Yeah, so like right now, it's like, you know what? They got what's coming. But you're right. When it comes to the Browns, and the Watson deal really, didn't help the matters whatsoever, but it did happen before that. It started before Watson, but the Watson scenario really aggravated the league in a big way. There's no doubt about it. It pissed them out. It pissed off everybody, and it's just it's a bittersweet thing if you think about it. I think it's the first time we've ever had an owner that has so much fucking money that he just did not even give a fuck about pissing off the entire fucking league. He did not give a fuck. That's really what happened there. I mean, like, I think that's one thing that we all overlook in the story. Everyone gets mad about this and how much money we gave him and all that. They really ticked off everybody when they did that, especially the other owners who now have to pony up. And you already see it in the new contracts, how much guaranteed money is now getting put out there. And it all started with Watson. There's no doubt about it. It did.
Well, Watson's contract now is like not even in the top 10. For Bob,
right. Well, overall,
yeah,
per year. His annual. But it's just 100% guaranteed. I think that pisses people off. That's the thing that pisses them off. So I think all that happens, but again, it's like bittersweet because it's like, but I think the league's gotten over it, and I also think that it's just an amazing thing that guy's got that much money. I mean, Haslam's just have that much money. Like it's like that's why this stadium is going to get done.
Oh,
100%. This stadium and the airport thing gets done because the Haslams have that much money. Like
money talks.
Right. There's no like, well, what will we do? How will we get that? Where will that money come from? You never really hear anyone say that. Like, where will it come from? Because everybody knows there's this one big, gigantic fucking just bowl of money in Jimmy and D Haslam. And they will pony it up. I do believe that's it. But the problem is they do it. It's all going to be their way, and it's all going to be, Jimmy and D's, it's like Haslam Palace, or whatever you'll call that fucking area.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
I love it. I think it'd be great. I would. Oh man, I think it would be great.
That whole complex is going to be a game changer for Northeast Ohio. I cannot.
I think it's going to happen. Yeah, I think it'll happen too.
It has to happen.
Well, I mean, I just can't. I don't want to get into that again, but I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine the alternative. The argument to me is so ridiculous. I can't even start wrapping my head around people who want to argue about it. It's like, what is the argument? Well, we want it to still be crappy in Cleveland. That's the only thing you can tell me. All right, let me move on. We got 15 more minutes or something like that. Yeah, we got 15 more minutes. This is an important position also. It's a position of interest to a lot of people. This is the offensive line. And obvious reasons why it's a position of interest. And it's a strange situation to have because our interior line may be the best in all of football. Our 3 interior guys together could easily be the best in all of football. Hands down, that could easily be. Right now, our 2 tackles might be the worst in all of football, right? the way it stands right now. So let's get into that real quick. So, of course, let's talk about the inside guys real quick. Of course, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, and Ethan Posich are our 3 guys who hold the inside, our 3 starters. And we also got, Conklin, and you got Jedrick. On our outsiders are our normal starters when they're healthy. And the odd thing is we don't have a fucking clue really where they are in health wise. It's like they might play, they might not play, they could play. They're kind of there. It's the same shit we always get when it comes to injuries in Cleveland. And they got Nick Harris. They brought back in Javian Cohen, James Hudson III still with us. Of course, DeJuan Jones, another situation where we really don't know where he stands as far as health goes. He was really impressive last year, and Zach Sinter, another backup. So let's talk about this real quick here. So there's the PUP list, and the only one that really was on there was Chubb, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So these guys are active for the first 4 games.
That's correct. Yeah. Anyone on the PUP list or the non-football injury list has to be out at least 4.
Right.
But with Conklin and Wills getting the clean bill of health, I guess, they're going to play. Now it appears that Wills may not be ready because I listened to the radio today and they were talking about Conklin was working a lot on the left side. And how he was basically like, I did this before and it's been a while, but I'm excited about it, blah, blah, blah. And you're even talking like if Conklin is healthy and adjusts to the left, that he could be the left tackle for like the next 3 years, which is a pretty generous assumption considering that the guy, ever since we signed him, I don't think he's played 16 games or now 17 games in a regular season at all. But when he's healthy, he's very, very effective.
Well, so it seems to me like they have an interesting problem. They have 3 tackles who talent-wise could start easily. And I already know Jones has made it very clear that he doesn't want nothing to do with the left side of the line. He's a right tackle, and that's where he wants to play. And I think that's probably where he's going to play. So it's an interesting thing to have 2 very talented guys that can play left tackle that seem to be injury prone to platoon each other. You have like 2 guys. If you only get half a guy and it's the half a guy, then you get a whole guy between the 2 of them. I'm thinking maybe that's the angle they're going with this one, where it's like, well, if we can keep Jones anchor that right side, and then we use all these freaking half-season dudes, we could get a whole season out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do there because Wills, he scares me. Conklin looks like he's made out of porcelain. I don't know what's up with that dude. So I don't, and it's just that all that stuff bothers me. And if your line has no tackles, you're in trouble.
One thing to consider is this is Will's contract year. The Browns decided not to pick up his option, I don't think. So this is like it for him. So if he, if he stays healthy and actually plays like he was drafted, then he's going to cash in and make some money. If he doesn't, then he's going to be a random jabroni,
Yeah. Journeyman
tackle here and there,
The thing about that position that's interesting, it's one of those positions in the NFL where the only way you really ever get a really, really great left tackle on your team is to draft one. You're never going to get one any other way. Nobody gives them up. No. Once you have one on your team, Joe Thomas was never going to play anywhere for any other team ever. That was never going to happen. We were going to pay whatever it took to keep Joe Thomas here. That's the way the NFL is set up. You do not lose those guys, but they're rare. They're the guys like Joe Thomas, even guys somewhat like Joe Thomas, are very rare, hard to find dudes. And so where the Browns are at now, because they missed on Wills, is they're either going to always have a mediocre left guard, or they're going to have a retread guy that was great. He had a great career, but he's at the very end of his career that they can pick up for a 1 or 2 year contract. And this is what they're going to have for the duration of this window. I believe. I mean, I'm just telling you, this is how I see that happening. So that's why Jed Wills isn't all of a sudden any longer, to me, this dreaded guy. To me, he's an average lineman is what he is. He's not a first round guy. He's an average lineman, but better than maybe anybody else we may get for that position, just because of how that position. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
I still think that they should have moved Wills back to his natural right tackle position.
Yeah,
I think that's where he would have excelled. Might be a strong word.
Yeah, because his problems look like maybe his problems though do seem attitude, and it seemed like he doesn't have. He's not tenacious. You know what I mean?
He always has that look on his face that like he's out in outer space somewhere and he doesn't really give a shit.
Yeah.
That, and he gets the reputation of being Baker's buddy, and that doesn't help him either. Because he was in all of Baker's commercials.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I never thought about that.
Yep.
What do you think about Baker, Larry? I'm curious. What was your opinion of Baker?
About Baker Mayfield?
Yeah. Did you like him when he was a Brown, or what was your opinion of Baker?
Being totally objective, because I'm indifferent whether I like to see good players succeed. I don't wish anybody to come in and be the bust, because the Browns and the Jets have had more than their share, right? Of guys coming in, especially at the QB position. I think that Cleveland got very hot and cold on him, as many cities do.
True.
They got too caught up in, do they like him or not? Who gives a shit? Okay. At the end of the day, it's like the president. Well, I don't like this one because I don't like. When somebody goes out and buys a car, let's say they go buy a Ford, do they go sit down with the CEO of Ford and decide if they're a nice guy or not? How many people have had dinner with the CEOs of the companies that they work for and make a living from?
It's true.
When they get hired for the job, say, well, wait a minute, I got to meet with your C-level senior leadership team. I want to see their character. At some point, is the guy talented? Can he help you win or not?
Yeah. Can he win us a championship?
Clearly, he belongs in the NFL, right?
Yes.
I mean,
I think he does. I think he's an NFL quarterback for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
for sure. I would never argue that he wasn't an NFL quarterback. He's definitely good enough to play in the NFL.
I think since you asked me, Big Bri, I understand all the arguments about Deshaun Watson being a franchise type guy and all that. I understand, but I still think, as many, I know probably outside, it was too high of a price to pay for him. I don't care what his statistical thing was. Who cares? As I've said before, when your team's not winning, you know what you look at? How's my favorite receiver doing in going to make the Pro Bowl this year? If you're not chasing a championship, you start looking at well, who's my best guy? And you look at all the consolation prizes. I don't care if he do. You think I care if some Jet quarterback, if Rodgers goes in and throws for 9 million yards this year? I don't care. I've waited my whole life to see another championship. That's all I care about. I don't care if he cares for 2,000 yards. Who cares? I don't care if he, unless he's breaking the law or cruel to animals or children or a bad human being. I don't care if he's a good guy, if people like him or not. Does he win games? So I think with Baker, what I would have done I would have probably spent some of those picks trying to pursue the tackle positions that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Your point is well taken.
Enough picks. You can shake one loose from somebody who's okay that would have gotten better by playing with that interior you just described.
So your point is well taken, and I never really thought about that, and that is that with a guy like Jed Wills, you took him, but you would have been allowed to have been wrong with that pick had you not done the Watson deal, which stole all those other picks from you. Now you have no way to fix some of your mistakes. You have no way to kind of like it was either make it or break it with these guys because you were kind of like strapped.
You have to run. Yes, you have to run the gauntlet on your picks. Then, well, who the hell does that? Really, who does?
You're right.
I mean, it's hard. It just
that's a good point. It's a good point.
So what I think about Baker is he was a quality player. Was he the favorite guy? So that just gets too hung up on. Look, Cleveland gets like every team. They get hung up on certain guys. I remember when people used to get all excited about Ozzie Newsome extending his streak of one game. He'd have a catch. He'd get a catch for 5 yards, fall down. He extended the streak. Who cares?
Yay, 180 games. All right, Ozzie, try off.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great player in his prime. But you guys know what I'm talking about.
My God,
when they weren't doing what I was all about, but we got Ozzie's streak. Yeah,
that happened. That did happen. I mean, there's no doubt that happened. I remember.
My dad used to go off on that.
That's so funny, dude. That's so funny. Yeah, he would just catch the ball and fall down.
Yeah, but, so that kind of stuff. I just think they made it so difficult on that they could have kept Mayfield and worked with him, but it just seemed like the maybe it was to the point with the journalists locally. They decided they don't like him. And then people piled on. We don't like him. We don't like. Okay, well, I don't think he cares. I don't think he loses any sleep. He went down. What was it, Tampa, and had a hell of a year 2 years back.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't.
Well, he bounced around a little bit before he got to Tampa.
He did, but
he hasn't totally sucked or anything. It's not like he sucked.
Somehow he proved still that he's valuable as a player in the league. And is he the most talented? No, but I still think they could have built more around him. And maybe not giving up on him. But, the shiny new thing that has great stats becomes very attractive when you're desperate to win. I get it. The Jets gave up for Rodgers, who's 150 years old. I get it. Teams do that.
And I'll tell you what, when I brought it up earlier about our owner, the downside of having an owner with that much money is what you just said, dude. When the shiny new thing pops up and he's like, oh, I can have that. That's why a guy with less money is kind of like, well, I can't have that. This dude was like, I'll have whatever I want. And that's kind of, I still believe Haslam had everything to do with the Watson deal. I don't believe that was done for any other reason than that was Haslam's idea from the very start. And I think it just got spun out of control. And that's what I think happened. I think you have an owner who gets, and I think he learned from that because he's kind of been staying out of the way of this whole thing. We haven't really heard, he's wrapped up in that stadium, I think, and thank God. Let them talk about that for a while, and let these guys run this team. All right, real quick, we got tight ends was Jordan Akins and David Njoku. Absolutely no surprises there. We're running out of time. Let's see, we got
Njoku's
two more matches.
He's a really good tight end. I'd love to have him on my team. Njoku.
Oh, he's a receiver in a tight end spotty.
Yeah, and he's just a cool guy. He seems like he's really started. He gelled well into this team. He's been here for a while now, and he's one of the faces of the team in some ways. And
the guys,
cool.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk about it. There was the Jets did have a guy years ago in the mid-70s by the name of Rich Castor, who he reminds me of in the sense that Rich Castor was a little bit taller, but he was a tight end that was just such. He was Howard Cosell used to call him the antelope because he got down the field. They moved him out to wide receiver, but he caught everything, and he was just totally too tall at the tight end position for that era.
Yeah, extremely fast for their size. Extremely fast.
I'll give Njoku a lot of credit. When he first came into the league, his hands were really sketch. He was inconsistent. His blocking was horrible. And then he wanted to trade it. And he worked hard at it. He's become a reliable receiver. He gets open. He runs good routes. He's actually improved as a blocker. He's become that guy. And it's been really cool. And you don't see that a lot. A lot of times, the old days, the Browns would have said, okay, this guy's a bust. Next. And for whatever reason, they believed in him. They believed in his physical freakness and said, you know what? You're going to do something, and we're going to be here to reap the rewards. Yeah. And lo and behold, it did. So kudos to the Browns front office for sticking with him and coaching him up. Yeah. And now he's the chief. Everybody loves the chief.
Well,
Yeah, he's one of the better. He's one of the better tight ends in the whole league right now. No doubt about it.
And Dan, you talked about earlier, like when we started the conversation almost an hour ago, we were talking about running backs with ball control. The tight end is almost like he's kind of the ball control role now. I mean, I know that started years ago with Dallas with guys like Jason Witten, who always got the first down when they needed it. Was just and then Novacek. The Dallas had a great. They kind of did that prototypical thing of these guys that just kept moving it. Now between Kittle and these other guys, that's position.
Kelsey.
They all want that guy. We all want a good tight end.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a very important position right now with the passing and the whole entire thing. All right, that's going to be it. We covered the whole offense. We got through the offense. I am very proud of us that we made it through half the team. I guess we'll cover the defense and maybe some more stuff because next week Jeff will be back, and that'll be the one that starts off before the season, which is a week from Sunday, and we have Dallas here at home. That will be fun. All right, guys. Thanks, you guys, for coming on. Thanks, you guys, for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.